everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're taking another walk through my neighborhood here. It's almost noontime here in California, and since we're taking another walk through my neighborhood, I figured today's topic could be about housing, mortgages, just the overall I guess you call it a crisis, housing crisis that many people are going through right now. Across the country, pretty much across the world now, rental prices and home prices are just skyrocketing, making it very unaffordable for a lot of people to find a decent home to rent or even purchase. So I bought my home here in my neighborhood. I bought a brand new home, ordered it back in 2019, and we moved in the summer of 2020 after it was finished being built. So there was a little bit of a delay, obviously, because of the health crisis that was going on at the beginning of 2020. So it took a little bit of time, but we moved in August of 2020. And during that time frame, the mortgage rates were great, especially if you had a good credit score. We locked in our rates 2 weeks before we moved into our home at a 2.4, which is been practically unheard of at any point in time. Right now, the mortgage rates are about 6.8 to low 7s, regardless of a good credit score or not. And the housing prices have gone up exponentially. So our house cost us, after we had the home builder do a couple upgrades from the basic flooring and stuff that the builder provided, our price was locked in at $298,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, just under 1,500 square foot home, which I think was a very good price. I know when I first went to go look at the houses and see if I wanted to order one, the prices were $5,000 cheaper a day after. And in a week, I went back a week later to look at some other ones. The price have gone up by $5,000. So, and I felt like I had waited too long, during that time. Now, fast forward 5 years later, my house is approximately worth $430,000. And like I said, at that 6.8 to like 7.1% interest rate for a mortgage. Now, most people nowadays don't have the money saved up to pay for a house cash, obviously. Most people put either a 3% or 10% or 20% down payment, and are either stuck with a PMI, private mortgage insurance, or if they're able to put a 20% down, which nowadays, if you put a 20% down on a $400,000 house, I mean, you're talking about $80,000, upwards of $80,000. There aren't many people that have that kind of money just sitting around waiting to use it. So like I said, I felt like I had waited too long. Looking back at it now, very lucky, very fortunate, and not only that, it was very good timing. I had waited a few years. I was initially going to buy a house back in early 2017, and it didn't work out. My wife was going to school. We had to pay for school, and some bills came up, and we had to postpone buying a home. So waited a couple more years, almost 3 years later, we were able to buy our home, and it worked out for us. But right now, it's not working out for a lot of people. Renting is difficult right now for a lot of people. So, nevertheless, buying a home I think they are ridiculous prices for homes nowadays. And on top of that, the interest rate's not making it easier. Historically, a lot of people will tell you the interest rates are still pretty low, 6%, 7%. Yes, back in a long time ago, you'd have 10%, 12%, 18% interest rates on mortgages. However, the home prices weren't as high. Now, with what people are making in salaries, I think for my age, average of 34, the average salary is about $65,000, which you could say equals out to about maybe $5,200 to $5,500 gross. That's gross. That's before taxes. After taxes, you might be taking home $4,000. After tax and Social Security and everything else, you might be taking home about $4,000. So after taxes, if you're taking home about $4,000, you try to buy a home. Even a decent home now is going to cost you $350,000. At least here in California, $350,000, $400,000. Like I said, my home is in a nice area, newer housing. Like I said, I'm kind of going through some schools right here, some nice schoolings, but it's nothing too fancy, and it still costs $430,000. My home now, at the interest rates, if I was to get it now at the interest rates that they have available now, I mean, you're talking about $3,000 and up. If you're taking home $4,000 or $4,500, you're talking about 70 to 85% of your take-home pay. Any financial expert is going to tell you, obviously, anywhere between 25 to 30% is where you want to be for your mortgage payment compared to your take-home. But now, you're talking about 75 to 80% or 85% of your take-home. I mean, that has what's left over for your bills, your cell phone, your gas, your car insurance. Even if you don't have a car payment, just your car insurance alone, what's left over? Food every month, gas, electricity. There's not much left over. So renting's not easier, but it is a lot cheaper nowadays than buying a home. You could find maybe, at least here in the Valley in California, you could find a decent two-bedroom for, $1,800, maybe $2,000 in some nicer areas, which is still very high historically for renting, but it's a lot cheaper compared to that $3,000 or $3,500 house payment that you would be paying for not that much bigger. Like I said, most apartments you can get for $2,000, you would get for a square footage of around maybe 1,000 feet. My house, like I told you, is about 1,500 feet. So would that extra $1,000 or $1,500 a month be worth it? Probably not. And would it make sense financially? Probably not. Which kind of goes to show nowadays, renting is probably the smarter option now over buying. I know a lot of people are so stuck on trying to buy a house right now, and I'm sure a lot of people's parents, especially younger, I'm 34. Even 10 years back, 8 years back, my parents are always telling me you should buy a home. That's the smartest investment. Owning property is the smartest thing to do. And they are right. Buying property over renting and paying someone else's mortgage if you're renting a house is the smartest option. It's the best option you could do. However, with the interest rates now and the home prices now, it is not the smartest thing you could do financially. And I'm sure a lot of younger people, or people, in their 20s or in their 30s, who aren't homeowners do feel that pressure from family members, from parents, from cousins, from brothers, sisters, uncles, whatever it is, to buy a home. And just like anything else, sometimes peer pressure can be a hard thing to get past. But just like any other time, peer pressure is sometimes just all that is. It's just pressure, unnecessary pressure that other people put on you and that sometimes we put on ourselves. Now, I've heard people buying homes nowadays. Either their parents help them out, or they were able to save up a large down payment. It took them a while, and they were able to save up a large down payment and buy a home now. Nice homes for $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Who at the interest rates now, obviously, like I said, their mortgage payment now, you're talking about $5,000, $4,500, $5,000, $5,500 a month. You know, half of their take home or half of their gross. It's just not smart. So for anybody trying to buy a home right now, or renting and feel like they're stuck, or feel like, you know, it could if they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel for buying a home, just make sure you're making smart decisions with your money. You know, if you have a roof over your head, an apartment, if you're stable where you're at, if you're happy, realize that sometimes the grass is not always green on the other side. And even though maybe you could afford to buy a home, if your take home salary covers your mortgage, but doesn't leave you much room for anything else, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be happier doing it. I'm at a school right now here. There's a middle school right now. This is where I'm at, the field. High school. It's going to be right behind me right there, that high school. Some baseball fields. And then we're going to be walking past the elementary school here shortly. Now, what can you do, right? Let's say that you have your apartment, you're on your own, and you desperately, or you've been waiting to buy a house for the past couple years, 3-4 years, and you just cannot seem to make it work, right? Be patient. Be patient, right? I was in high school when the housing market crashed back in 2007, when it started to crash. And even during that time, I remember people were skeptical about buying a new home. My parents bought a new home. They kept their house that they had, and then they ended up buying another one. And even though during that time they bought their house for $250,000, the second home they bought, $250,000 is what they got it for. When the housing market crashed and people were losing their jobs, they were finding it very difficult too to make the payment on their second home and their first home at the same time. But what happened shortly afterwards, right? People that didn't buy a home and were sitting on the sidelines, maybe with some cash in their bank, or like we talked about in one of the other videos, in a little high yield savings account, they were able to use that cash and buy up a home very cheap. And if they had enough money, they were able to buy 2 homes very cheap. It became very, very affordable for a nice home. There were housing prices that went down 50%, 60%, at least here in Fresno. The same house that would cost you $400,000 was costing you $260,000, costing you $180,000, especially if it was in bad condition. My dad has a lot of friends that bought multiple houses, 3-4 houses when the market crashed. Right? It took a couple years to save up the money. It took a few years actually to save up the money, or who knows? It might have taken them a lifetime. I don't know. We never asked them, but But that money they had on the sidelines, they were able to use it and buy. One guy that we know, he bought 5 houses. Another lady with her husband, they bought 4 houses. And just recently, the lady with her husband, they retired. And they were able to sell those houses and made a lot of money. Made a lot of money off those 4 houses. So I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that it's going to be the exact same thing that happened in 2007. But the possibilities of it happening, or the possibilities of a time when you can't afford a house might be around the corner, and you wouldn't know if you go and make your life difficult now financially. So if you feel like you cannot afford a house right now, and like we talked about in another video, the federal taxes, a possibility of them being cut on overtime or on tips, if you're able to save that money little by little, maybe one day you will be able to afford a house, and at a better price than you could have gotten it now. So, but the key to all this is being patient. Being patient and being smart, crucial during times like this. My wife and I have several people that we know that are either living at home with their parents, married, living at home with their parents, or single, living at home with their parents and saving up for a home. And they've been doing it for years, you know. And for one reason or another, haven't been able to buy a home, haven't been able to save enough money. And a lot of that comes down to either not being able to, right? Like I mentioned in another video before, many people just aren't making enough money to be able to do that. But also, a lot of people are also wasting their money on things that they might not need, instead of saving their money to be able to buy a home later on. So at the end of the day though, right now, I don't believe it's a smart time to buy a home. I personally would not buy my house right now at the price that they have, at the interest rates that are available. I wouldn't buy my home right now. Now, like I said, I planned it and I struggled for a lot of years. Before I was able to even think about buying a home. Before I was even ready, financially, intellectually, emotionally ready to buy a home. There's a lot of things that come with it. It's not just the mortgage. It's not just picking a neighborhood. It's having money to fix any possible thing that comes along with it. Like I mentioned in the other video that I made, $200 went towards my AC unit. And that AC unit's not even 5 years old, 5 years old at the most. And there's already things wrong with it. That's not even counting the other years where I did the regular maintenance on the AC unit, making sure that it's running properly for the summertime and the wintertime. That's not even counting, maintenance on your landscape that you might want to do. That's not even counting a plumbing issue that might come along. So it's not just the mortgage, it's not just the PMI, it's not just the interest rates, it's not just the taxes that you have to pay on their home. These newly constructed homes, what many times they don't tell you is, after your land gets reevaluated, when the home gets built, a year or 2 years down the line, those taxes are going to increase exponentially. My house payment started off at just over $1,500, 15 and 10. And now it's gone up to, at one point it was $18.50. And that was just on, and I know this because I looked at the statement that the county sends every year on what taxes are looking like for that year. That was just on the taxes alone of newer neighborhoods, newer developments starting to be built up around my area, increasing the property value, increasing the taxes. That's one of the things that we weren't told. That's one of the things a lot of people weren't told when they buy a new home. So, like I said, if you can afford to buy a home in this financial climate, great, good for you. Keep working. Keep working. I wish you the best of luck. But if you can't, keep working. Keep working. I wish you the best of luck, and be smart. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to help you. No one's going to come pay your bills. No one's going to come feed your family other than yourself. So try to make the best decision you can. Even if it feels like you're not moving forward, if you keep working, one day you will. So maybe this is information anybody watching this already knew. Very simple, very basic information. Or maybe it's information that you needed to hear to remind yourself, or to hear for the first time. So hopefully it was helpful. If not, hopefully my next video will bring some type of usefulness for you. Anyways, thanks guys. Appreciate you.